Hi everybody, Jamm Mangum here, founder of Strategic Pricing Specialist and Strategic Listing Specialist. And we're here today to talk about the 3 dangerous trends that real estate agents face that can ruin their business. You know, over the last 20 years, we have seen massive changes in the real estate business. When I got into the business in the early 1990s, we sold information. Today, completely different. We sell our service package. But really, the trends over the last 6 or 7 years have just been a complete roller coaster. And so here we are at a place in time in the real estate business where the market is doing another significant change. And in the past, like I said, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years actually, we have been in a buyer's market. And now we're starting to shift and sellers are gaining more power. And what I'm seeing out there, what's happening is that many real estate agents have gotten really comfortable with buyers and they're not shifting over to listings. And they're not shifting over to listings for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons I have found is it's really difficult to get and understand a really good listing presentation. I am fascinated at the fact that when I joined the business all those 2 decades ago, and the way we were taught how to do a listing presentation and do pricing is effectively the same as someone starting today. And yet the market has changed so much and the seller has changed so much. And so that's not that they don't want the same things. The sellers don't want the same things as what we used to do. And yet the industry is teaching the exact same things over and over and over. And so as you are trying to move your business from buyers to sellers, as you should, and we're going to talk about in a minute why you should, it is difficult. It's even more difficult. And so we're going to talk about those trends. But let me say this. I have been in the exact same place. I have been in the place where you are working buyers and you're comfortable with buyers and you're happy with buyers. And I loved buyers. And my broker in charge would say, you know, you really need to do listings. And I would say to her, yeah, I know, but I love buyers. And I would defend my love for them. However, now that I have some experience in listings and I look back on it, I realize that what I was doing is moving commission check to commission check to commission check. And never was I building a business. The way you build a business is using listings. And so I met somebody who taught me a fantastic framework for doing a listing presentation. And by the way, I'm going to show you that framework in the next video that you'll be receiving. And so he taught me this great framework of how to do a listing presentation where I became confident and I felt very masterful at doing listing presentations and ultimately rocked them and also rocked pricing presentations. So let's go ahead and get to the trends that we're going to talk about today that I think you need to understand to make sure as you're thinking about the evolving business model as the market is changing, you can consider this information. All right, so trend number 1, it is continuing to compete on just a marketing plan, just on marketing. So what do I mean by this? Well, I have evaluated hundreds of listing presentations, and I know that a listing presentation essentially looks the same. You go in, you do the house tour, you sit down at the kitchen table, you do a marketing plan, and then you show them the pricing information. And you may say, hey, how else do you do it? That's the way I should do it. And I understand that. That's the way that we are taught to do it. But what happens when all of us do it the same way is that we're not differentiating ourselves from one another. And if we cannot differentiate ourselves from one another, then the consumer doesn't understand the difference and they're going to start beating us down on our commission. And so if you are having problems in your listing presentations with people asking for lower commissions, that means that they can't tell the difference. The other problem is discounters. The discounters are coming in and they're saying to people, look, the internet has basically made this marketing game all about the internet. So we all market the same way. So why wouldn't you pay my 3.5% instead of 6%? And so that is also happening. So as long as we're continuing to all do it the same way, we'll never be able to break out of the pack and be different and rise above everybody else and get more money, make higher commissions. And you might be saying, okay, well, what else would I be doing? Well, you should be talking about your value proposition, your service package, why you put more net in their pocket. That's what you should be talking about. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on our next video on the framework. All right, trend number 2. Trend number 2 is using just a CMA to discover pricing. Okay, we were all taught this way, and we were taught that when you wanted to discover the right sales price for a house, that you go out, you look at the historical information, you make the adjustments, and voila, you have a value range. And so I understand that. I've done it this way for years. It's also been very dissatisfying because what happens is customers beat on us about this information, and different people bring in different CMAs. This is, in fact, the hardest part about a listing presentation is understanding, helping the seller understand the significance of a good listing price and helping them find the right listing price. So in today's world, the CMA is certainly important, but the CMA is not everything. We also need to do a market study. We need to understand what trends are happening. We need to pair that with their motivation to understand what is the best pricing strategy to use to get that family where they need to be in the appropriate amount of time. All right, number 3. Trend number 3 is ignoring the benefits of a listing. So what do I mean? So I have a private coaching client who, she's a really good client. She's a really good real estate agent, but she wants to build her business. And so when I evaluated her business, I noticed that she did primarily buyers. She had a few listings here and there, and that was from past clients, which is great. But she was not really focusing. She had about a 75-25 split in buyers and sellers, 25% on sellers, 75% on buyers. And so when I said to her, look, we've got to start to building a listing model, she said, you know, I just don't understand. I make the same amount of money, essentially, commission check, essentially on a buyer that I do a listing. And on a listing, I have to pay expenses, so I actually make more on buyers. So why would I do that? So this is what I ended up explaining to her, and I'm going to demonstrate it to you. There's a word called leverage, and leverage implies to how you get to spin off lots of other productivity off of one thing. So we're going to talk about how we do that. So when we get a listing, we are essentially hooked to it. So we get to use that listing to move around and interact with the different groups of people. And we are attached to that listing, and it helps us build our business and build our brand. How? Let me show you. Well, let's start off with our sphere of influence. Sphere of influence is that group of people who know or know of us in a favorable light. And it's really great. We all know we should be doing that. We all know that we should be prospecting to our sphere of influence. Well, a really good way to remind our sphere of influence that we're here and that we're successful is to make sure to notify them when we have listed or sold a house. That raises their opinion of us as a real estate agent in their minds, and it keeps them keeps us top of mind to them. Next, social media. Social media, and I hear people all the time groan about social media. I really don't like it. Yeah, so it's one of those essential things now. And we get to take that house and we get to put it out into the social media outlets, and our name and our brand and our business are attached to it. And so we get to spread information about us via the house. Next one, internet. So I consider the internet a big buyer pond. NAR tells us that 93% of buyers start their home buying on the internet. And so what happens is this: they go into the internet, they see a house they like, they contact the listing agent. The listing agent then has an opportunity to convert them. Likelihood is they're not going to purchase that house. And so the agent's likelihood that what the agent is to do is to convert them. So if you think of it that way, then a house is a big old piece of juicy bait. And I need to take my hook and I need to put the house on it and I need to cast it into the buyer pond, and buyers will nibble at it, and then I get to bring in buyers into my business. And just as an FYI, many people will say to me, I never get anything that way. People will call me about a house and I never get anything that way. That's probably because of your telephone skill is more than likely what's happening. What I find is that somebody will call and say, hey, I want to know more about that house, or I want to know how much that house is, or I want to know, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll say, well, that house is $350,000 and it has 4 bedrooms and 3.5 baths and a 2-car garage. It's on a cul-de-sac lot. And they go, yeah, thank you, bye. And they do that because they've dismissed the house and therefore they have dismissed you. One of your jobs when you get contacted by someone from the internet is to disassociate yourself with that house as quickly as possible so you can convert them. How do you do that? Well, it is, again, called the pattern interview, and the way you do it is when someone asks you a question, you answer the question, but then you ask a question. So let's say that somebody said to me, how much is that house, or does that house have a bonus room, for example? The answer would be yes, that house does have a bonus room. Is a bonus room important to you? Well, yes, it is important to me. What else is important to you? Well, it's also important to me, and they name off things. All right, great. I can think of several houses in that same general vicinity that have what you described. Why don't you come in, we'll sit down and look through that, and then we'll go and see them. What does that, do you think that would be okay? And would 7 o'clock be okay? Or tonight, or would you prefer tomorrow morning? Right, kind of close. And so that is the way you make that conversion. All right, next, move up neighbors. This is a very unused way of leveraging your listing. So let's say that I get a listing for $350,000. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a map out or go on MapQuest or wherever the case may be, and I'm going to look at the neighborhoods around this listing. Because I know that 21% of the buyers are buying to get a bigger house. And so I want to identify the neighborhood that is a step down from this neighborhood. So that $180,000 to $200,000 neighborhood, if I'm seeing that are a $350,000 house, I'm going to look at the neighborhoods that are stepped down. It stands to reason that if somebody is moving just for space, that they will want to stay in the same general vicinity, that they will want to have the same shopping centers, the same grocery store, the same daycare, the same dentist, the same doctors, the same friends, the same recreational activities, etc., etc. So they're going to want to stay in that same general vicinity. So I take that $350,000 house and I go prospecting in that lower neighborhood. And my hope is to get someone interested in that lower neighborhood in this higher house, because if I can write my offer on the higher house, then I can list this house that they are selling, and I can start advertising to that neighborhood about selling this house. And so this is the epitome of leverage prospecting. I have made a ton of money using this method, and I know a lot of people who have as well. But it's really, really rarely used. So think about that. All right, prospecting. Let's talk about open houses. How can we use this house for prospecting? A lot of people say to me, I don't like doing open houses. Great. I know just as many people that do really, really well at open houses, and they get a lot of buyers and sellers, frankly, off of open houses. It gives you an opportunity to get warm leads because a neighbor or someone has has hired you, and as a result, they think more kindly of you as a result. And it gives you an opportunity to sit in one place and let people come into you and talk about that house, and you can, in fact, convert people from open houses. If you're struggling with open houses, you like the idea of it, but you're not doing well with them, you might want to consider which ones you're picking. Really, one of the biggest issues is how you pick them, making sure that they're newer on the market, they're a hot price, they look cute, they're not too deep in a neighborhood, etc. And then the second thing is, let's say you're getting a lot of people in, but you're not converting anyone. Go back to the pattern interview that we just talked about a minute ago and up your skill on how you do that. All right, next, sign. Yeah, so the sign is great. People drive by, they see it, they love it, and they want more information on it. We have great systems now. We have QR codes and texting on sign writers and all kinds of things to capture the interest of people. So a great way to pick up buyers. Next, neighbors. So I met a gentleman just recently who has built his entire business off neighbors. As soon as he gets a listing, he goes and knocks on 10 doors to the right, 10 doors to the left, and 20 doors across the street. This house gives him an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody. Hey, I just listed a house down the street. Can I ask you some questions? Hey, so do you know anybody who has had interest in this neighborhood? Have you heard any of your neighbors talk about moving? And so he establishes this relationship with these people. And after he has that conversation, he writes them a thank you note, then he puts them on their sphere of influence list, puts them on a drip campaign. And he does really well off just working neighbors. All right, last but not least, search engine optimization. You know, search engine optimization is all about content, getting as much content out into the universe as possible, and having a house allows you to do that because you are putting more content out in the universe. Now, the one thing, so by the way, there could be more of these. These were just the ones that came to mind right now, and I do consider them the basics. But one of the things I really want to say is a powerhouse for listings is this. I can have 20 listings right now, have all of these things happening for me, and be in my house, sitting on the couch and watching a movie with my husband, while all the rest of the real estate agents are out showing that house. But if I'm doing primarily buyers, that while my husband is sitting on the couch watching a movie, I am in a car taking buyers around. And so that is a really, really important factor here, is that I can have 20 listings at any one given time. I cannot have 20 buyers in my car at any one given time. All right, so there are the 3 trends that we just had discussed. And I know you might be sitting here thinking, all right, it's a big leap going from doing primarily buyers to primarily listings. I'm uncertain about this doesn't feel good, and I understand that. But just remember, tons of people before you have done this. Every person you see out there who is a listing agent has been through this process. They started with buyers. Nobody ever starts off with listings. They've started off as buyers and they've moved themselves into listings. And they have done it successfully, and they have built themselves a business. And so if you know people that have this business model, then it is possible. And if it is possible for you. In fact, it is probable for you. And I say that because you're the person who clicked on the video, which means you're the person who is interested in learning and progressing and getting better, which means this is probable for you. So I want to let you know there's a couple of more videos coming, and the next one will give you a framework that I found for a really good listing presentation. And then the next one, we're going to talk about some obstacles that come up to going from being a buyer agent to being primarily a listing agent. In the meantime, the thought I would like to leave you with is this. I have always found in my history of selling real estate and training and coaching that it is the learners of the world who are the earners in this world. I'll see you soon.